Thanks for joining us tonight on Arc Salt Lake. I'm Brian Schnee. Monday, October 21st. Good to have you with us. Tonight, we're taking a look at the search for the body of Matthew Johnson and his wife's court appearance today. We're going to go in depth on this for quite a bit. Members of the Utah National Guard, along with law enforcement, have been in Davis County the last few days looking in specific areas for a shallow grave. 2 News first learned of this on Friday. We've covered it throughout the weekend. And at first, the Guard wouldn't admit that they're looking for one of their own, instead telling us initially that they were training in the area where the search is ongoing. Matthew Johnson is a Green Beret with the 19th Special Forces Group. He hasn't been seen since September 20th. Here's Cottonwood Heights Police Sergeant Gary Young.
Since our investigation began, we've continued our efforts to locate the shallow grave that's mentioned in your reports, and we have been looking in the area north. It's a vast area. We're not sure where this shallow grave is, and as you indicated, there are several Guard units that they volunteered in their searching efforts. Also, they'd like to find him. We do want to find the deceased and give him the proper burial that's due him. And we're just following leads. We're looking at areas that are likely locations, and we appreciate the Guard's assistance. When I spoke to the other officers out there searching, they said, yeah, they're volunteering to come out here and help them. So I don't think it's a directed thing. We're not giving them a grid, place as officers, because there's Davis County and Weaver County. There's different law enforcement agencies that are out in that area that we're coordinating with. And to my understanding, the Guard has been volunteering or sending, they've been volunteering to go out and assist them. It is a very large area. It is a needle in a haystack. We don't have any other information on where to start looking other than, obvious places or more likely places that a person in a minivan could, easily get to in their vehicle. It was described as a shallow grave. We're following up all viable leads. It's a slow process, and we're checking, everything we can. And we're doing our very best, and we hopefully have a positive outcome to find the deceased's shallow grave. Logically, we would take the information gathered. We would see any evidence that we could follow up on, and follow up individual, like a GPS or a phone. Where's the phone been? Any pings on a phone? We've executed over 25 different warrants, for phones and phone messages and geolocation information we can. And then, when you say logically, we will just follow any evidence to where it leads until its logical conclusion. So if it's a dead end, then we will obviously stop at that point. But if there's some more viable leads, then we find more evidence, or we find more information from a doorbell camera or a sighting of a vehicle, then we'll follow up on those leads. And so from the very first day that we learned about the investigation, we have just been methodically following the leads where they lead us.
That was Cottonwood Heights Police Sergeant Gary Young discussing the case. Crews have been combing the area near Farmington Bay since at least Friday. They also met up on Sunday to do more of the same. Christian Sita spoke with former FBI agent Greg Rogers about the search.
There's a lot of technology that can be used. There's ground penetrating radar. There's aerial and ultraviolet technologies. And essentially what you're looking for with those is heat being generated, and you can see indications of that. The problem with that in a rural area, obviously, is you're going to get a whole lot of hits. I mean, dead animals, all sorts of things like that generate types of heat that would be picked up on those technologies. Cadaver dogs are used a lot, and they're very effective. And I'm confident they're using all of those technologies. But there's really basic stuff you'd be doing too. Based on what I've read about this case, the defendant made some statements to an informant about burying this body. And if you had any kind of idea where you could sort of narrow down the location, I mean, it's one thing to say, I buried a body out in the West Desert. That's not helpful. If you have any kind of information that narrows that down, it's highly likely in a case like this, you'd be able to find just irregular ground, disturbances, things like that, that would indicate that a grave had been, that some digging had occurred there. It's very difficult to dig a grave large enough for a human body by yourself. And that's evidently what she's indicated she did. That's most often what's going to be called a disorganized crime scene, meaning that it's not something that someone wouldn't notice if they saw it. And that's probably what's going on here. So my guess is in this case, they're using all of those very high-end technologies, but they're also trying to just narrow it down from her statement, to get a smaller area to search.
Again, Greg Rogers, former FBI, weighing in there. Let's continue to go in depth on this as Guard members continue searching for a shallow grave which may contain the body of Matthew Johnson. 2 News obtained a search warrant that sheds some light on the early interactions with police and Jennifer Gledhill, the woman accused of murdering her husband, Matthew Johnson. So the warrant is for a phone from the informant who contacted police on September 28th. That was via an online tip. The tip is from a man who claims he and Gledhill have been in a relationship since July 2024 and shares how Gledhill told the informant what she had done to Matthew Johnson, which included shooting Johnson and then cleaning the bedroom of her home afterwards. The warrant also outlines how police responded to take a domestic violence report from Gledhill 4 days before receiving the tip. Officers noticed that Gledhill had bruising all over her body and that she went to the police station to have that bruising photographed. Gledhill claimed that she was hit by Johnson, and then she said she couldn't provide a written statement because she didn't believe she could accurately write down the events from that night. She also said that she and Johnson were drinking that night and had consensual sex. She also told police that she found a note on the door of her home on the 24th from Johnson's co-workers looking for him. The warrant goes into detail about a missing persons report filed out of Oregon, where Johnson's co-workers at the Guard believed he was heading to take care of a family member. This after Johnson put in a notice of leave on the 1st of September with a return date said to be the 16th. There's a lot to unpack here, basically 3 different parts from this warrant. To read more of it in more sequential order, we've published an article on our website, KUTV.com. Meanwhile, Jennifer Gledhill made her first court appearance today. The topic of conversation was about visitation and contact with her 3 children. Gledhill was emotional in the virtual hearing, visibly upset. Here's part of what happened in court today.
All right, ma'am, your attorney is present here in the courtroom. So he's going to go over the specifics of the charges with you, ma'am, and answer any of your questions. And there are some issues we need to discuss. Number 1 is that the state is requesting a pretrial protective order. The protected parties, in this case, there are 3 protected parties, ma'am, so I'm going to read their names and then ask if you know them. Johnson, and Johnson. Do you know all 3 of those individuals, ma'am?
Yes.
And Ms. Argyle, can I ask the state, what's the basis for the protective order? They're not listed, those individuals are not listed as alleged victims.
Children of the victim and the defendant, and there is some concern about obstruction that has been alleged to have already occurred and involvement with the children specifically. They will be likely witnesses in this matter.
Okay. Mr. Diaz, did you
I mean, they're her children. I think that it would be, I guess, if everybody's concern here, part of everybody's concern is the best interest of the children. I can't imagine what it's like to say that she can't see the children and in effect telling the children that they can't see mom either. They're not named victims in the case. I don't see a basis for having a protective order that prevents them from having contact with their mother in any form or fashion. Either way, it's going to be supervised contact if there is contact. If they do come and see her, if she is in custody, someone's got to bring them. They're not of an age where they can come by themselves. So I think the state's concern about
talk over you. How old are the
11, 7, and 5.
Okay, thank you. Go on.
Yeah, I don't see where there's going to be supervised contact, any concern where there's going to be potential obstruction in any form or fashion. I think this is a heavy-handed tactic by the state to try to put undue pressure on her as it relates to this case.
Ms. Argyle, any response?
Your Honor, unfortunately, absent a mental health professional present during any interactions, a layperson is unlikely to be able to determine whether there's any duress or influence being made. And given the age of the children and the severity of the offense, it is concerning that additional trauma may arise if there is contact at this time.
Ms. Gledhill, for now, and until Judge Mao tells you something differently, ma'am, I am going to order that you have no contact with. So, ma'am, that means no in-person, no telephonic, no electronic contact. Ma'am, if you're released, you may not go near their residence, school. You may not have anyone else contact them on your behalf. And, ma'am, while this order is in effect, you may not possess a weapon or ammunition. Ms. Gledhill, do you understand everything I just told you?
Yes.
Gledhill's scheduling hearing is scheduled for later this week, the 25th. We have a lot of coverage on this on our YouTube channel right now. If you'd like to read more about this case and the search for Matthew Johnson, including this article we wrote up today on that warrant and what it shows, you can find it right now on our website, KUTV.com.